their bank. Joining us right now is Walser Wealth Management President Rebecca Walser, along with Kevin O'Leary here on set. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Kevin, I want to kick it off with you because you say regional banks are dead, and you don't think there's a need for regional banks in this country any longer.
No, I don't. I don't think we need as many as we've got. The real imputed issue that every voter and taxpayer has to make is, are you willing to back up every single regional bank account regardless of the amount of money it has in it? So in other words, if Silicon Valley Bank is run by idiots, which I think we clearly know that's the case now, and you live in Florida, why do you care? Why do you have to pay for the mistakes right across the country, or in any other state that you're not involved in? Why do you have to pay?
I spoke with an investor of regional banks. He says, who do you think got the PPP dollars out? It was the smaller banks. The large banks were frozen. The large banks have abandoned small-town America. They're opening branches in big cities. Those folks rely on regional banks.
Let me push back on that. Today, the program that still remains is the Employee Retention Credit, $26,000 per employee. You do not need a regional bank to get that. It's all done online. Everything's moved online, Maria. You don't need these regional banks or their buildings. It's very hard to say this because people like the kumbaya, where they grew up with their bicycle and they took their $10 out of the regional bank, or they had an ice cream cone beside it. Those days are over. It's over.
Well, he says bigger banks mean worse service and a higher cost of capital. And what do we want? Everybody to be too big to fail?
Okay, tell me how a regional bank's going to be profitable when they have to put the same compliance in place that a money center bank has, because that's where we're going with these hearings.
Is it the same compliance? Really? That's what I want to know.
Well, I think that's what you heard yesterday and what you're hearing today.
Yeah.
They cannot make money. Does that mean I have to guarantee their profitability as a taxpayer? These are the debates we should be having.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, we're having a debate on the economy right now and whether or not this bank stress is going to cause a recession. Got the fourth quarter final read of GDP out this morning in an hour and a half, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Then we've got the February PCE index out tomorrow. Rebecca, what do you think about all of this data coming, and how would you assess the macro story now?
Well, the macro story is a mess. I totally agree with both of you and Kevin that, we've got banking crisis, and it seems like the market right now thinks that it's stemmed for now. But I think that we have a much bigger crisis coming, which is the global sovereign debt crisis. And so I expect PCE will show that it's still tracking downwards. We're still getting less.
That inflation is coming down, but it's still elevated.
Yes,
yeah, that's what I think.
It's certainly elevated year over year, but it's definitely coming down from the hot numbers that we've had maybe. And that's demand destruction is one thing that's happening.
Yeah,
we definitely have an economy that people are feeling. And so it's a mixed bag, Maria. But, I think, with China and what they've done with the Shanghai Petroleum Natural Gas Exchange, where we just had the first actual exchange of 65,000 tons of LNG between UAE basically and France, China and France, done outside of the U.S. dollar this Tuesday in Chinese yuan, we start to see that, really de-dollarization, the end of dollar hegemony is really a reality that America is not prepared for. I see a lot of economists saying we're talking about, a long time from now, and I think we're actually in for a big surprise.
So what does that mean? What does that mean for investors?
It means that we are looking at the exclusion of if you will, of Europe, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and Japan, to the extent and the exclusion of the rest of the world that is coming together in a consortium of sorts of economies of how can we trade outside of SWIFT and the West.
I think this is incredibly concerning. Brazil and China just struck this trade deal, agreed to ditch the dollar, pay in real and yuan.
Yes.
By the way, you mentioned the sovereign debt. We are looking at corporate debt later on in the show because Stephanie Pomboy will be here. We've got a list of these sectors that are seeing the most debt rollover this year. In other words, they may have been paying 2%, 3%, 4% before rates started going up. Now they're paying 9, 10, 11%. So she's going to identify those sectors coming up. But Kevin, I guess for our viewers out there not sure where to place money, what to do in this eventuality that an economy is slowing, perhaps a recession. If you had $10,000 to invest right now, where would you put it? Because a new Fox News poll shows only 37% of people would put it in the bank. 18% would put it under their mattress, Kevin.
I would simply take 70% of it, or $7,000, and put it in the S&P 500.
An index fund.
An index fund, because it's an easy way to track the economy, and, it's an inexpensive way to do it. And 30% I just roll in 90-day T-bills. I love this idea that the American dollar is going to be replaced with what?
I'll tell you right now, with the yuan from China and with the real in Brazil, these two nations just did a deal.
Yeah, great. Would you actually...
So you're not buying it.
Are you kidding? Every commodity on earth is traded against the U.S. dollar as an index of its price. I don't care what the Chinese do. I would never put any money into their currency, nor would anybody else. No sovereign would store their wealth. Ask the Swiss government how many Chinese anything they own. Zero. That country is not trusted. It's not a storage of wealth or anywhere to put it because it's an untrusted entity. And they've got to make themselves figure that out because I wouldn't touch anything they do. So this idea that somewhere in the world you're going to take your actual accounts of your people and the sovereign wealth, which is where most of the money is, and give it to China, not a chance in hell that's happening.
I'm not so sure. I think the CCP has been very strategic about getting inside the gates of America, whether it's through the universities, Hollywood, corporate America.
Well, Maria,
and
how much of your savings would you give to China?
I would not give any of it.
I rest my case, Your
But I'm not Tim Cook. I'm not Ray Dalio. Look at the conversation we just had with Jonathan Ward. I mean, you know, the CCP has goals to overtake the United States as the #1 superpower, and this White House is doing nothing about it.
I agree with you there.
The White House is doing nothing about it. So now they're on the currency. They want people to use the yuan.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I understand your skepticism.
It can be verified on the blockchain. So I understand your point about it not being trusted, but if it's on the blockchain, and we're talking
now,
about
that's
digital.
interesting. I think the U.S. should dominate the cryptocurrency on a regulated basis. We haven't done that yet, but we could have a stabilized dollar, USDC, for example, if we regulated it. You saw the moves last week for the Chinese trying to open up licenses in Hong Kong. They want
Binance?
Well, Binance is under investigation. I think this is the beginning of the unwinding of Binance, just like FTX was wiped out. I want to know who has $64 billion in the Binance token. Who's backing that up? I suspect it's the Chinese government. I don't know
CCP.
that. Okay, so are you going to let them buy assets like Voyager here out of bankruptcy? I don't think so. I think we have to be honest about this and ask people who owns the exchange.
Yeah,
I agree.
Know. I agree. Unfortunately, the White House has a soft approach to the CCP.
Another great election issue, Maria.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to keep following this. Rebecca, good to see you. Rebecca Walser, Kevin O'Leary, so happy you're here with us the whole morning.